When I was 17, there were 2 words that changed my life from childhood to adulthood, and that was, "You're pregnant." I didn't know what to do. I was a cheerleader in high school, but I was also a leader in my youth group. We were at church on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, so it wasn't like this was going to remain a secret. There were people to tell and to confront and say, here's what's going on in my life. And unfortunately, a lot of those people didn't take it very well. And I was very challenged by the church at that time. I really felt kind of betrayed, like they weren't backing me up, like they weren't supporting me. I heard a lot of messages from people. If I had an abortion, it was immoral. If I gave him up for adoption, I was abandoning him. If I kept him, I was being selfish because my mom was a single mom and we couldn't afford it. And so my mom really helped to guide me to figure out what was the best thing for me and for the child, and that's when we chose adoption, and we decided to go down that route. The whole 9 months I didn't pray to God because I felt that shame and that guilt. It was harder than I ever imagined, going through each step of it, each doctor's visit, each time I had a decision to make, each time I had a paper to sign. I remember going into the hospital just for a checkup, and I wasn't supposed to have him that day. And then they decided to induce me. But now all of a sudden I was gonna have to give him up. And at that point when I realized, this is it, I'm not gonna be able to see him again. It was just really hard. I almost, was like, I don't know that I can go through with this. They asked me if I wanted to hold him after he was born, and I couldn't. I couldn't do it because I thought, if I do that, I'm gonna wanna keep him. So I didn't. But later in the day, I asked my sister to go down and check on him. So my sister went down to the nursery and checked on him and said she saw 2 people that were right in front of his bassinet, and she thinks that was the parents of them. And so that gave me some relief to know he wasn't alone.
So we got the call on the day he was born. We drove to Lexington and picked him up 2 days old. And Linda got to dress him in the nursery, and she was just beside herself, and she loved him very much. Just immediately, he was just the spark that we both needed. He grew up just a regular, feisty little boy, always getting into everything, but never any real trouble or anything.
So this was an open adoption. The family could contact me anytime that they wanted, but I didn't know their names. And it's like you feel like you're making this right decision, but there's still all these questions that I'm gonna live with for the rest of my life about, who his parents are and how they're gonna treat him, and if he's gonna have a good life, and what is he gonna grow up and be like? And all of those questions still enter your mind. So you're questioning yourself all of the time, and you're feeling the guilt of that all of the time because you just don't know. And I think I lived in shame and guilt for a long time because I didn't know. In my mind, I always said, God, just let him be so happy he doesn't even want to find me. And then I graduated. I realized, faith is still a big part of my life, and it always will be. How will I restore that within myself? And I went back to church. I went to a Christian college, and that's where I met my husband, John. And I told him immediately about my son that was born, and he was very gracious about it. But after college, we moved to Ohio and started a church and then started having our own family. And there were lots of different points that I would think of my child and what was he doing and where was he at this point in his life.
So I grew up in Kentucky in just a small town, and just I would say was a normal life. You know, I think the adoption thing was something that was always told to me, so it was never, you know, like a weird thing to me. I mean, it was just always normal.
I remember one time being in my bedroom, and it was just a day of guilt and shame that I couldn't face anymore, and I was just crying, and I couldn't stop crying because I felt guilt and shame and question and what if? And then the next day, I found out where he was. I had gone down to Lexington, my hometown. I'd gone to my home church, and I was helping my sister with an event. And it's a large church. It's got about 8,000 to 10,000 people at that time. So we were sitting in a room of about 1,500, 2,000 people. And we went into the service, and I sat down, and the music started, and then after the worship, the pastor said, "Go ahead and stand up and shake hands with someone." And in front of me was a young man and his wife. And I shook their hand, and I shook her hand, and then I shook other people's hands and didn't think anything about it.
We turn around, and she's sitting right behind us. Just from seeing her in Facebook, I don't know how long before, but we immediately knew who she was.
So we go through the service, and then after the service, I go out, I walk down the hall. I am sitting in the lobby by myself, and I see a young man walking up to me, and I thought, do I know him? And he comes closer, and so I just looked up and I said, "Hi, can I help you?" And he said,
"Excuse me, ma'am, is your name Cathy Henry?"
And I said, "Yes, it is. Do I know you?"
I said, "Well, my name is Russ Judd," or I say my name is Russ, and she immediately, she starts crying.
And that's when I knew he was my son. But we just then sat down and started talking, and I just said, "How do you know me? How do you know who I am? Why are you at this church? This is my church." And he said, "This is my home church too. I started coming here a couple of years ago, and I live in Lexington." So he started telling me about his life, and then we went out to his car. His wife was in the car, and so I got to meet her, and I got to meet their 9-month-old son.
That day that Russ met her at Southland, he told me, "Do you know who that was?" I said, "No, I didn't pay any attention to who it was, you know." And I thought, "Oh, do I really want to do this?" You know, and she came in the door, and we sat there and hugged and cried for 10 minutes probably.
So I know for a lot of people that this story is very joyful and very happy, and it's a great ending. But I know for some people, this isn't a joyful story because that's not what's happened in their lives. They haven't been able to see this picture, or they are still in the middle of the picture. And that's hard to be able to sit in that place. But understanding that God is always there to be with you would be the message. And if you are sitting here and if you are hearing the words regret or guilt or shame, I would say that is not the voice of God whispering in your ear. That God whispers love and protection, and He wants to be with you every step of the way. Those are the words of God.